hitch. This streaming on Facebook is there's a little bit of technology around it, and yes, apologies for the delay, but I'm really excited today to be interviewing Sue Landsberg. Now, Sue is founder of Inner Happy. She is a mindfulness mentor and trainer, and she's based in beautiful Connemara, County Galway. So we're going to be discussing all things mindfulness. So first of all, I'd like to say thanks very much, Sue, for coming along, and you're very welcome.
Thank you, Catriona. It's always delightful to chat to you.
So Sue, what's the weather like down in beautiful Connemara this morning?
It's beautifully miserable.
Oh no!
Drizzly, quite grey, a little bit cold, but a typical winter's December morning. And the wind isn't howling and it's not lashing rain. So I think that means it's a good day.
Okay, so we'll be grateful for the sunshine in Dublin then this morning.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
Awesome. Gosh. Well,
So
enjoy it.
Sue, just to get started then, could you tell us what actually is mindfulness?
Very good question, Catriona, and I think it's a very misused and misunderstood term. But I have practiced and studied mindfulness for 12 to 14 years now. So I have a good practical and understanding, and through the research and studies I've done. So mindfulness is really about paying attention and being conscious to what's going on for you in each moment, in your mind, so your thoughts, what you're feeling, your emotions. And this, when we become aware, we recognize that we don't have to think, feel, and act or behave out of autopilot, which is what we generally are doing: thinking, behaving, speaking on autopilot. It's a learned behavior, which means we can unlearn it. And much of our time is spent on autopilot because it uses less energy and it's more effective for us. So our time can go into doing other things. However, when our thoughts become, as in these days at the moment, for many, many people, it's become a very stressful world, very overwhelming world. It can be that we live in. And if we allow this to affect us and our thoughts become overwhelming and skewed, and it affects the way we are living day to day, then it can become problematic for our health and well-being. And we need to really be cognizant of the effect that the way we speak to ourselves, the way what our thought processes are and our mindset are, have a massive impact on our emotions and on the stress levels, which we will go into in a few minutes, on our stress levels, which has a great impact on our physical and mental health. So mindfulness is about paying attention on purpose to what's going on in each moment for you, and doing it in a non-judgmental and compassionate way. It's about learning that your thoughts and emotions come and go. And when we learn to become the observer of what's going on in our mind and our emotions, we recognize that they actually come and go in waves. So with mindfulness, we learn techniques to enable us to be with what is going on for us without always having to react and to do something about it. So we become the observer, like if we're watching a carnival pass by on the road. We become like the observer, the spectator, watching the thoughts and the emotions on these carnival, in the carnival, I can't think of the word, and we watch them come and we watch them go. We don't have to hop on and go ride in the circus with them. We can observe them. And that is hugely empowering and liberating, because when we feel very stressed and overwhelmed, which, let's face it, could easily get the better of any of us, what happens then is we feel like we have to jump on board and do something about it. And we, as a species, and a highly evolved, very intelligent species, may I say, aren't often behaving and thinking in the most intelligent way, because autopilot has taught us that we need to, we are here for survival, which we are, and we are always on the lookout for danger. Now, when we see stress or anything that is perceived as a threat, we are still responding in the same way that people would years ago when being chased by a tiger. We're activating the fight, flight, freeze response, which is our stress response. And all of us have experiences of how that feels, firstly in our body. All of our thoughts have a mapping, an emotional mapping in the body. So with mindfulness and in the training you and I do, we learn to, first of all, understand what is going on in our mind. We learn to recognize the symptoms of stress, overwhelm in the body. All those symptoms of sweaty palms, shaking, trembling knees, heartbeat racing, palpitations, you name it, dry mouth. So what's happening in the body is these symptoms are a warning sign that we feel we are in danger. We need to fight or flight. Now, this isn't a very helpful response when that stress isn't, you're not in imminent danger. Maybe we're just going to give a presentation. Maybe we have a very important interview or a sales meeting that a deal is clinched on our presentation. This can indeed be stressful, but we can teach ourselves to control that response in a more helpful way so that we're not sabotaging ourselves. And basically, with mindfulness, what we are doing is we are retraining the brain to respond in a more helpful way.
Okay.
So when we become aware, first of all, of what's going on, then we can make changes. If we just live on autopilot and this is how I am, this is how I think, this is how I behave, well, yes, it is, because you have learned to behave and think and feel that way. However, it's like a muscle. It's like if you are you're planning to run a marathon and you run a few 5Ks and it's all great at the start, but then you give up. But in 2 months, you think, okay, well, I've done a bit, so I'll just go run the marathon. Well, you haven't trained your muscles to be prepared to run that marathon. So mindfulness techniques are the same. It's about building new muscles, and which means you have to practice. And when you practice, you are activating and making that rest and digest state of being and response, chemical response in your body. You are making that stronger. So when you encounter stress, anxiety, overwhelm, your rest and digest response is going to be stronger than the fight, flight, or freeze response. And that is why it's very important, and I call it proactive preventative measure for mental health, because you are being proactive because you are using the techniques daily and integrating them into your day, not necessarily something extra you have to do. So you are being proactive. You're making it a healthy habit. You are anchoring the techniques onto activities you already do in your day so that it's easier to remember. And soon it becomes a normal part of your day, a healthy habit. And it is preventative because a lot of people wait or think, oh, I can handle everything. I've never struggled with serious depression or anxiety before. I'm fine. Till one day they're not fine. It all builds up and accumulates. And now they think that there's something wrong with them, and they're in the doctor's office And yes, there is something wrong because they haven't learned the skills to cope. So what I call this is preventative, using these skills and techniques to activate that rest and digest part of your brain and make it stronger is a preventative measure for your mental health and well-being. And that's why I am so passionate about this, because I don't want people to wait till they're in a dire situation where they feel they cannot cope anymore. And I also, Catriona, I really feel that people overlook a lot of these techniques as they seem so quick and easy. It's almost like they're too easy, that they think this can't be right, but it is.
So could I ask you then, so when you're talking about techniques,
Yes.
are you looking at more bringing mindfulness into everyday habits, or
Yes.
over actually having a mindfulness practice every day, or is it a mixture of both?
Great question, Catriona. Mindfulness, there's formal mindfulness practices and informal mindfulness practices, and both are amazing. The formal would be where you would take time to sit and do maybe a loving kindness meditation where you're sending loving wishes to yourself, to others, doing a body scan from head to toe, which you can also do on the go. So formal would be taking time out to do something in a seated or a focused awareness or a practice. But what I am all for that, I feel it's amazing. But what I like to teach people is, because I know everybody out there, without exception, is incredibly busy, overrun, and does not always have time for those extra practices. With all good intention, they may like to get there, but they don't always get the time. So what I prefer or like to teach more is short practices. And when I say short, it could be 20-second practices to 2-minute practices a few times a day, and integrating them into your day. When you're in the office, when you're in the car, when you're standing in a queue at the shop, when you're cooking your dinner, when you're in the shower. And for me, based on experience and client testimonial, they are much more highly effective because you are doing small practices throughout your whole day. So what you are doing is you are staying on a more even emotional and mental keel throughout the whole day, rather than thinking, I'll get to that practice this evening when I get home, but then something else comes up and you never end up getting there. And so for me, shorter practices more often are much more effective, and it fits into people's busy days. And also, Catriona, if you're in a really stressful situation, and we know stress can bounce upon us without any warning. Now, there's no point for you in that moment saying, okay, gosh, this is a nightmare. This is really stressful. It's taken me by surprise, but it's okay because I'll go for a massage or a run tonight. You need techniques that you can use right there and then in the moment to help you manage that situation. And the mindfulness techniques, when practiced, increase your ability to focus, gives you greater clarity and calm. And as a result, you make much better, clearer decisions. Your memory is improved. So as you can see from all of this, you will be able to work in a more effective and proficient manner in the workplace. And you are saving time because your focus, your ability to focus is much greater. So you're not being as distracted. So you get more done in less time. You also become more flexible and creative in your thinking because you no longer over time have a fixed mindset. And on an emotional level, let's face it, we're not just physical beings. Busy business people, they also need to be able to switch off. And sometimes, especially in this world, it's very hard to switch off because of technology. You have a busy day at work, the phone goes 24/7. We can become a slave to it unless we are aware. And then you go home, maybe to your family or maybe to your friends or your dog. Even that dog, deserves a nice warm welcome. And if it's very hard to switch off, we can become consumed, which can really affect our mood. And we can become very anxious and depressed. This can all, creep in. So having techniques, which we, as I said, we do with breath, body work, the mind. If you're going into your family home and you want to be able to switch off, or you're going into a meeting and you're racing from one to the other, teaching a few simple breathing techniques can bring you back into that moment. You can regain focus, clarity, and calm. So when you move on to the next meeting or you go back into your family, you have readjusted and calmed your whole nervous system. So you're not going back into the next meeting or back home in a reactive manner, which can have great repercussions on your relationships and all the people around you, let's face it. And they help to build resilience and inner strength. And when you have more control over all of these things, you feel more calm and you have greater confidence. So one thing links into the next. And as regards health, we do know that heightened stress and chronic stress, and you know this so well, causes inflammation in the body because of the stress chemicals that are released in the body. Now, over time, inflammation in the body is not something you want, as it can be a precursor to disease. So we want to try, years ago, it would have been seen as, if you're relaxing, it was seen as being lazy, but again, that's so wrong, because especially today, we need to learn. And a lot of people, it's not natural. They need to learn to relax. And these
Absolutely.
techniques, can help you relax. And it's not just for taking time out, it's for your physical health. Your cardiovascular system improves, as does your immunity. Your blood pressure goes down, your sleep improves, your digestion, your energy levels. The chances of burnout are so much lower if you practice these techniques.
And so, just for somebody now who has never done mindfulness before, they've thought about it, they've heard about it, they know all the benefits, they can see that their stress levels are rising, but just the whole idea of starting with mindfulness is too overwhelming. What would you say to those people, or what could they do as a first step?
First step, I would like to show you one little technique and again, all of these techniques, they give instant results. And that's what's so powerful. And can you imagine if you're using these techniques daily, first of all, the impact is so much greater and you get so much more from the techniques. They kick in quicker, the effect is stronger, but you do have to practice. However, you do feel the effect from the first time. So for somebody starting out, I would say, go to a coach, first of all, because they can, like you or like me, we can help you one-to-one or in a group from the start, how to progress and where, start you off slowly, see where you're at and what you need. But there are many techniques, and some resonate more with others. So there are so many techniques, you will always find something that's right for you. So I would always say begin small. We generally start with the breath, right? Because your breath is always there. It's the first and the last thing we do, right? But yet we don't always use it to its greatest capacity. So if you're in a stressful situation, there is a technique we use called the 4-7-11 breath. And a lot of people use this before they would go onto stage, do a presentation. I do it, in fact, many times a day, as I have 2 teenagers and 2 dogs. or if I'm giving a talk, and it gives me back that clarity of thought, calms my whole nervous system. So why not just start with one technique and try and do it a few times a day rather than taking on too much too quickly, and see how it feels for you. So Catriona, if you like, we can practice this together. And this
Great,
is
I'd love to.
many. Yeah. So as we inhale, now usually we will, unless you have congestion, it is better to breathe through your nose for health reasons, right?
Okay.
So as you inhale, you can inhale for the count of 4. So in your mind or out loud, you can count to 4. So I'll just tell you first, and then we can do it together.
Okay.
And you're going to hold the breath for the count of 7. Now, what I'd like to say is if you can't get up to 7, that's okay. Just a little longer than the inhale. And we're going to exhale for the count of 11. Again, if your exhale is shorter than 11, that's also okay. What is key here is that the exhale is longer than the inhale, because this helps activate that calm response in the brain, okay, and in the body. So, and try and do it slowly. And as you build this up, not only are you calming your whole nervous system, you're strengthening your lung capacity, which is very valuable for sports people, for our health. You want nice, strong lungs that can function to its best, highest capacity. So we can begin. So we will inhale for the count of 4. Hold for the count of 7. And exhale for the count of 11. Again, through your nose if you can. If you can't, that's also okay. Remember, when we practice mindfulness, we will practice being non-judgmental and self-compassionate, because otherwise you're practicing judgment, you know. And these also, it's very important to remember, like I said, this is a muscle. This is it's like going to the gym. You can't just go once and suddenly have big biceps, you know. You got to build it up slowly. So if you forget to practice sometimes, you're just going to start over again. If your mind wanders, or your breath, it can take a few cycles of breath to induce that sense of calm and ease. So the message is keep going. Keep going and keep trying and keep starting over. And I would just like to tell you there, a lot of people think, oh, but that doesn't work. I try deep breathing and it just doesn't work. The thing there is, it's important to count, because the counting gives our thinking brain a job to do. So when you're stressed and your mind is racing out of control on these stories, and we're catastrophizing and exaggerating and ruminating, our mind is always there to think. That's what it does, and it's not going to stop. And with mindfulness and meditation, we're not looking to stop the brain. We need it, our thinking process. So what we're going to rather do is give our thinking brain a job to do that is more helpful, that is going to help us to cope. So we give it the job of counting. And that is why,
Sue,
yeah.
Can I ask you then, how many rounds would you recommend of the 4, 7, 11?
Everybody's different with their lung capacity. I find for me, 1 minute is like 3 cycles of breath. Inhale, hold, exhale. As I say, everybody is different. And you may find after 1 cycle of breath, you already feel better. You may find it takes 5 cycles of breath to feel better. Everybody is different, and it also depends on the circumstance. And what is also key here, I don't want to bombard you with too much information, but what's key here, and what we all of us teach in our training, is tuning into the signals in your body quickly. So early intervention is key. And the earlier you get this stress response, the quicker your recovery will be with these techniques.
Okay.
So but that is something
and
we learn, and that is something you can learn. So
when you're starting off, Sue, then and you have maybe you decided you're going to go with the breathing,
yeah.
is there any specific time of the day that's better maybe to try it out or to do it, or as you say, it's a little bit late when you're in the really stressful situation,
Yeah.
so
That,
to get up
yeah,
and running?
absolutely, Catriona. Yes. Like we said, don't wait for the stressful situation to arise before you try it, because you won't remember to use it. You want it to become your automatic go-to behavior. And the only way it will be is if you have practiced it often. Then your body knows what to do when that situation kicks in. So use it when you don't need it. A good time to start is when you wake in the morning, because a lot of us wake up to that shocking alarm. Even though I have birds singing now, it's much better than it used to be years ago. And a good thing is, before your mind starts racing into what the day is ahead, use the breathing when you wake up. Just take 1 minute, more if you can. Use it in the shower. Anchor it, like I said, onto something you already do a few times in the day. I think this would be the best anchor for many people. Maybe every time you check your phone, just do one cycle of breath, or 2 if you can. Every time it depends on your lifestyle, every time you stop at the traffic lights, you can do it there. Every time you're in the shower, that's like, I mean, every time you wash your hands, every time you boil the kettle. Choose one anchor and say, right, for the next week, I am going to use this technique every time I do this activity. And that will keep you, because it's having a response on your whole nervous system, your mind and your body will become so much more calm over, throughout the day. You will feel an instant relief. You might think, oh, that doesn't really work. But then over time, you might think, gee, I actually feel more calm here. I feel better in myself. So just watch, observe what's going on. So I would say, I hope that's helpful, that answer.
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of people will be really relieved to hear that it's, little and often, and that it can be, as you say, anchored to a daily task rather than having to set aside another 10 minutes that they don't have or whatever to actually have a formal practice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As you're waiting, if your coffee's too hot, do it there while you're waiting.
And as you say, to start small and pick one specific thing, that you can anchor it to, and practice.
Yeah. And please, you know what? Life is there are so many uncontrollables. It's really messy. We all go through heartache, pain, struggle. That's part of life. But we can cope with it in a much better and healthier and positive way if we have skills to cope. I feel these things that we should have been taught in school, because life is so challenging now. So don't wait till you're in that circumstance, till you feel, okay, now is the time. When you're feeling well, healthy, and happy, that's the time to arm yourself with positive coping mechanisms and integrate them into your day, so that first of all, you will be a happier, more calm person. You'll feel more in control. You'll have greater clarity. Your confidence will be improved. Your whole well-being will be better. And as a result, you have more to offer the world. You're more pleasant to be around, and you're happier. And life is too short. And you know what? If we haven't learned these, we tend to become more reactive and impulsive, and also turn to unhelpful coping mechanisms when we're under heightened stress. Like, it could be drugs, alcohol, and the list goes on, as we know. or it can come out as anger and aggression, which isn't positive. But you can teach yourself other positive ways to cope. And that's my message, is proactive preventative measures to give you a happier, healthier life.
Great. That's been really, really helpful, Sue. And I think people will be delighted to have actually got, you know, a technique to start with. So if they want to learn more about mindfulness or about you or your Inner Happy business, how can they do that?
Yeah, thank you, Catriona. I do have an active Facebook page, and I'm also on LinkedIn. Both on LinkedIn, it's under Sue Landsberg. Inner Happy is on Facebook, and I do also have a website, www.inner-happy.com. What I have just started offering, again, it's all about for busy people. On Sunday evenings, I've been offering one quick mindfulness technique to use for that whole week ahead, and a short 2-3 minute meditation. So tuning in on a Sunday night to this private Facebook group will give you one technique to use. It'll take about 7 minutes of your time, but you will be armed for that week with one technique to use for that week ahead. So that is something new I have started. I hold lots of workshops. I do have, it's all been online training now. My standard training is 5 weeks. I'm not there to keep you going on forever. I'm there to arm you with what you need to cope. So that's been going really well. And I do hold, when we can again, mindful retreats, like day retreats. So hopefully we'll be back in action next year. And that's really it for now. I'm all about helping people, busy people, who I know if they learned some techniques, they would feel much happier and have greater joy in their life because they're able to cope, and they can share those skills with other people. And a
Brilliant.
lot of people, it would keep a lot of people out of the doctor's rooms as well, because so many people are now turning to the doctor thinking there's something wrong with them. But it is, and it can be, yes, but a lot of it is also the stress that they have been enduring for this whole year. And, you know, it doesn't mean they're not broken. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. They just simply don't have the techniques to cope. And that is something they can learn. They don't necessarily need medication from the doctor for that.
Great. That's fantastic. And I'll put Sue's details in the comments, and anybody who wants any further details can log on to her website. That's great. Listen, Sue, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today and hearing all about mindfulness. A lot of my followers on social media will know that I give the odd breathing tips, but it's great to hear from the expert what exactly mindfulness is, and you know, how to sort of get up and running. So thank you very much for the chat, and looking forward to catching up with you again soon.
Yeah, we will. Thanks a million for having me. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Sue. Bye-bye. Okay.